Hi again, it's me, Jack Wallen, and I am here once again with a Linux 101 video for all of you to enjoy. Before I get going, I want to say a humble thank you to everybody who has been watching these videos and commenting and actually answering questions for other people and subscribing to the channel. It means a lot to me, and I am thrilled to be able to bring this information to you. I have been using Linux for a very long time. I'm a huge fan of it and open source, and I just want to be able to help those of you out there or give you something that you could share with other people so you can say, hey, see, Linux is actually easier than you think. This time around, we're going to talk about package managers. Nice, right? What is a package manager? Well, it manages packages. Simple as that. Okay, not really, it's not really that simple, but essentially a package manager is a system on your operating system that makes it easy for you to install, update, and remove applications. Now, when most people think of the package managers, they think of the command line. And when I say command line, a lot of people who are new to Linux go, I don't think so. Well, the good news is, there's two bits of good news here. First, almost every modern Linux distribution has a front-end GUI that works in conjunction with the package manager, so you don't have to worry about the command line. There's GNOME software, there's KDE Discover, there's Synaptic, there's Octopi, there's Yast. And there's probably plenty more that I haven't even thought. Oh, there's the Elementary OS App Center, and I'm sure that there are plenty more. But those are kind of the main ones. And you'll actually find that some distributions that don't even use the GNOME desktop use GNOME software. And I have actually run into a distribution recently that doesn't use KDE, but it has KDE Discover. So those GUI applications are really, really handy. And what it means is that you don't have to worry about the package manager's command line tools. But I'm going to say this. Even though I am a big fan of telling people that you don't ever have to use the command line in Linux. You really don't. Not with modern distributions. You just don't. Unless you're an admin or you really want to get your fingers dirty with the operating system, you don't have to use the command line. That being said, you will be surprised at how easy it is to use these package managers. Now, another thing I want to say is probably, other than the ability to install, update, and remove applications from your operating system, one of the best things about a package manager is that they make sure that the system is aware of the software that you've installed. So if you install any application, let's say you're using Ubuntu, and you install any application through the GNOME software, or software, whatever, I can't even remember what Ubuntu's calling it now, but you install a package from that GUI tool. Well, the next time you go to upgrade, the system's going to know about that package that you installed. And it's going to automatically upgrade that package if there's an update available, so you could just go sudo apt upgrade. And any application that you've installed with apt will get picked up in that upgrade. Now, let's just say, for example, you install a package from source, which I used to do back in the late 90s and the early 2000s, because sometimes the package managers just weren't really readily available at that point. So if you were to install a package via source, so you download the package, you unpack it, you change into the directory, and then you do /configure, and then you do make, and then you do sudo make install. Well, that package is installed as long as you already have all the dependencies installed, but that package is now installed on your system. But guess what? When you run sudo apt update or upgrade, that package that you installed by source is not going to get upgraded. What do you have to do to upgrade it? You have to download the new version, recompile, make, and install it every time. So right out of the gate, one of the biggest benefits of using a package manager is not just convenience. It's not just ease of upgrading, but it's also, bear with me here, security. What? Huh? What? Say what? Okay, listen. Let's just say you did install an application a couple of months ago. You installed it via source code. And it's working great. Working great. And then you forget that you installed it via source code. Okay? Are you with me? All the while, you've been running sudo apt upgrade, assuming that package that you installed via source is also being upgraded. Guess what? It's not. So that means that all of the bug fixes, the security patches that have been added to that package since you installed it from source, they're not applied to your software. So you're missing out. And that is probably the primary reason why I no longer install software from source, especially on the desktop. Because I want to make sure that when I run sudo apt upgrade, everything is picked up and everything is updated. Because I want to make sure that I have all the latest security patches installed on my system. And if you install via source, that's not always the case. Now, let's talk about the individual package managers on different distributions. Well, let's say you're using Debian or Ubuntu. You've got apt. Let's say you're using Fedora. Then you've got DNF. If you're using Arch, you've got Pacman. If you're using OpenSUSE, you've got Zypper. There are plenty more. There are a lot of other obscure package managers out there. We won't talk about those, but they do exist, like Nix and a couple of others. But we really only want to concentrate on apt, DNF, Zypper, and Pacman. So, how do you use apt? Let me show you how simple it is. Well, I'm not going to really show you. I'm going to tell you. Let's say you just want to install GIMP. GNU Image Manipulation Project. It's a great and powerful tool that's kind of similar to Photoshop. If you're using Ubuntu or a Debian-based distribution, you could install it with sudo apt install GIMP. Or the way I like to do it is sudo apt-get GIMP --y. Because the --y means, yes, you don't have to answer the questions. If you just do sudo apt install GIMP, then it's going to say, hey, do you really want to install this? Type Y and click enter, or hit enter. Okay, let's say you're using Fedora and you want to install GIMP. Sudo DNF install GIMP. If you're using Arch, Pacman, or sudo pacman -sy GIMP. Zypper, I believe, haven't used Zypper in a while, sudo zypper-i GIMP. And then if you do, let's say you're using Ubuntu, let's say there's a new version of GIMP out because GIMP version 3 should be available very soon, exciting times. You could upgrade, if that upgrade is available and you do sudo apt upgrade, GIMP's going to get caught up in that upgrade. Yeah, it's really exciting, right? And there are all sorts of other really cool features, like sudo apt, let's see, apt install full upgrade, dist upgrade. There's all sorts of higher level commands that you can use with those. For example, you could upgrade. Well, you don't really like if you're using Ubuntu and you want to go from Ubuntu 24. Where are we right now in Ubuntu? Is it 24? My gosh, 24-04, and you want to go to, let's say, 25.04. You could do that. That is actually sudo do release upgrade. So it's not really, it uses apt, but it's a different front end for apt, for the upgrade, from one release to another. Yeah, there is a lot of information regarding package managers, and I haven't even really scratched the surface yet. We've got some more to talk about. But you can, remember, with your package manager, you can install, you can upgrade, you can remove. Now, let's say, for example, and this is a really, really cool trick that I have had to use on a number of occasions over the years. Let's say you try to install You're on Ubuntu or a Debian-based distribution, and you try to install a piece of software. You do sudo apt install application X, whatever it's called. And in the output of the command, you see that it errored out. It didn't install. It didn't successfully install. What do you do? Do you troubleshoot it? Do you spend hours trying to troubleshoot it? Maybe it's a dependency issue or whatever. apt has a really cool trick, and I've used it a lot. Let's say that happens to you. The first thing you should do is try this. Sudo apt install -f. That -f is fix. It will fix your broken installation. Works almost every time. I have written countless articles where I am demonstrating how to use a piece of software, and in the process of installing the software, that happens. It errors out, and in the article I say, okay, it's probably going to error out on you. When it does, run apt sudo apt install -f, and it'll fix it. That is one of the many reasons why I like to use Debian-based distributions, because it's so easy to fix broken installations. Now, you think we're done, but we're not. So far, you've got installing on Linux, you've got source, you've got your package manager command line tools, and you've got your GUI front ends for those package managers. There's more. There's more fun to be had. There's always more fun to be had with Linux. There's something called a universal package manager. What is this? Well, I'm not going to get into the deep, dirty details about what they are. Essentially, a universal package manager takes everything an application needs, dependencies, libraries, whatever, bundles it together into a single package, a container, that you can install with a universal package manager. And very often, or most of the times, those packages are, when they're installed, they're sandboxed. So they don't always have immediate access to the rest of your system. That's great. That's secure. That's a really good reason why universal package managers are great to use. But which ones do you have available at your disposal? Well, there are really two major universal package managers. There's also app images, but we won't talk about app images right now. I'll save app images for a later discussion. The two main universal package managers are Snap and Flatpak. Now, these universal package managers get a lot of bad. I have a bad reputation, and I think it's unwarranted. It reminds me of so long ago. There was the war between VI and Emacs, which I'm sure it probably still goes on. But there's two camps. There's Snap and Flatpak. And most often, nary the twain shall meet. And fans of each side are they're adamant that their tool is better. Okay, first off, I'm going to say this. Thanks to universal package managers, Snap and Flatpak, there are applications available for Linux that might not otherwise be available. Why is that? Well, imagine you're a developer, or imagine you're a company that sells product X, or develops product X. And you get a lot of requests for, hey, we want a Linux port of this piece of software, please, please, please. Well, Company X looks at the Linux landscape and says, okay, we would like to do this. The problem is that in order to do this, we have to then develop our software either for only one distribution and only one desktop environment, or we have to develop our software for all of them. So you'd have to develop a version of your software for a Debian-based distribution with GNOME, and a Debian-based distribution with KDE Plasma, and a Debian-based distribution with XFCE, and a Fedora-based distribution with GNOME, and a Fedora-based distribution with KDE Plasma, and it goes on and on and on ad nauseum. And that's one of the reasons why a lot of companies don't bother porting their software to Linux, because it's complicated. There are so many moving pieces. That's one of the problems that universal package managers solve, because they bundle it all together. So you could be on GNOME and you can install an application from a universal package manager in the same way that you would install it if you were on KDE. And it's awesome. The universal package managers make it possible for us to have software like Spotify and Slack. I use those two examples a lot because those are two pieces of software that everybody knows and everybody uses, or a lot of people use, millions of people use them. So you might be one of those persons that says, no, you should only ever use a distribution's primary package manager and not universal package manager. But the thing is, and I'm cool with that. That's great. I'm also 100% cool if you're an open source purist and you will only install open source software on your system. I'm not that person, because I will install whatever software I need to get the job done. If it's open source, perfect. If it's proprietary, I'll use it. As long as it runs on Linux, I'll use it. And I'm actually grateful that some of these big companies release their software for Linux, because that means more people can use Linux. I mean, imagine if there were no Spotify or Slack for Linux. Because I remember very well the time when those applications like that were not available. And you had to say, okay, well, then what do I use? How do I communicate with people who are using X, since X is not available for Linux? I've got to find a way around it. Well, you don't have to do that anymore. Okay, now, somebody asked me what the difference between Snap and Flatpak is, and which is better. Well, it's kind of, it's complicated, but here's the thing. Let me see if I can help you kind of draw your own conclusions. I'm not going to make the decision for you. I'm going to help you draw the conclusions. First off, Flatpak was created by a developer with Red Hat. Snap was created by Canonical, who maintains Ubuntu. Now, there was a big stink for a while because Ubuntu, Canonical pretty much said that all Ubuntu spins had to kind of jettison Flatpak. And that kind of ruffled some feathers, to the point where people started leaving Ubuntu-based distributions for Fedora-based distributions or any other distribution. And it was a knee-jerk reaction, and I understand why it happened, but even so, Snap is a really, really good tool. And I'll get to that in a minute. Now, here's probably one of the reasons why I think Snap is so important. Flatpak is for desktops. Flatpak, you can install thousands upon thousands of applications on your desktop. Snap, you can install thousands and thousands of applications for your desktop, but you can also use Snap to install applications on a server. For instance, if I wanted to, I could install Nextcloud, which is a great cloud-based platform. I can install that with Snap and have Nextcloud up and running in seconds. You can't do that with Flatpak. You just can't. Snap not only has server tools, but they have command line tools Flatpak does not. Now, here's another thing. Every single part of Flatpak is open source. With Snap, the backend is proprietary. So if you're an open source purist, obviously you're going to want to use Flatpak. Okay, here's another thing. Sometimes Snap applications are slower to start. It's not every time. Not with every application. I have installed applications with both Snap and Flatpak and have found in some instances Snap applications start faster. Sometimes Flatpak applications start faster. Kind of a crapshoot there. So, you know, if you really, really want speed, if speed is the single most important thing, then Flatpak's probably your choice. Now, here's another issue. Snap packages are automatically updated in the background. Once you've installed a Snap package, you don't have to update them. They will update automatically again in the background. Flatpak does not do that. You have to manually upgrade Flatpak apps. It's like sudo flat, or no, it's not, it's Flatpak refresh, I think. I mostly use Snap, but I do use Flatpak as well. But that's a big thing. So if you want automatic updates, go with Snap. If you prefer to do things manually, go with Flatpak. Flatpak does not require sudo. So you could go Flatpak install Spotify. Snap requires sudo. So you have to go sudo snap install Spotify. It's just the way it is. Now, I'm not a developer. I'm not a developer at all. But I have had developers tell me that snaps are easier to build. But that really doesn't matter to end users. They just want it to work, right? They want it to work simply and reliably and blah, blah, blah. As far as security is concerned, I think it's really close here, but I give the edge to Flatpak because I think Flatpak does a better job of sandboxing applications. So when an application is sandboxed, it means it's kind of ice quarantined from the rest of the system. So it doesn't easily interact with something. And that's good for security because you don't want something rogue being able to get into Etsy and reconfigure things such that all of a sudden your desktop or your server is no longer usable, or it's usable by someone you don't want to be using it. Okay, that brings me to my final point, and this one doesn't get talked about a whole lot, but it's really, really important. I always like to say that Linux is the most secure operating system on the market. Here's the thing. I also like to say this. If your computer is connected to a network, it's vulnerable. Doesn't matter what operating system you're using. If it's connected to a network, it's vulnerable. It doesn't mean anything's going to happen. It means it could happen. Now, let's talk about how that applies to package managers. Every package manager has what's called a standard repository. For example, apt standard repositories are maintained by Canonical. And you could install most everything you need from the standard repositories. DNF has standard repositories. Zypper has standard repositories. Pacman has standard repositories. Snap has standard repositories. Snap has one repository, and that's the Snap Hub. Snapcraft. Snap Hub. Flatpak has Flat Hub, but then there are some third-party repositories that get involved. And it's those third-party repositories I want to talk about right now. Okay, so let's say, pour exemple, let's say that you do a little Google search because there's this particular application you want to, or there's a type of application that you want to install. Let's just say I need to install a piece of software that does X on Linux. Do your search, and your search results in, hey, here's an application that does just that. And you're like, oh, this sounds really, really awesome. And the developer of this program makes it sound like this is the bee's knees. You have to have it. So to install that application, because it's not part of the standard repositories, not a part of it. So to install that application, you have to first install a repository. You have to add a repository for the application, which generally means you need to get a GPG key, add that, then add the repository. Like in apt, it's Etsy apt. They changed it a little bit. Apt sources.d, something like that. Anyway, I'm old. So you add the repository, you've added the GPG key, you run sudo apt update, and then so you make apt aware of this new repository, and then you do sudo apt install application X. Well, here's the thing. You don't know if that application you just installed contained malicious code or not. Because did you vet the developer? Did you do some research on this developer? Did you do some research on this application? Or did you just find this really cool application that sounded like it sounded everything you've ever needed for the Linux desktop, and you just willy-nilly installed it without vetting it at all? Well, who's to say? And that's part of the problem. You never know. Anything outside of the standard repositories, unless it's a well-known and vetted source, could contain malicious software. It's the same thing with every operating system on the planet. You could be using Windows. I'm just kidding. Windows has its place. You could be using Windows. Now, Windows has an app store. You can go to the Windows App Store and install any application from that and mostly be fairly confident that it's going to work and not contain malicious software. However, you might do a search. I need application X for Windows. And you see, hey, there's a website. I've never seen this website before. I don't know who manages this website, but they've got this application. Download that .exe file or MSI file or whatever and double click it and install it, and blammo, you just installed malicious software. Now, Mac OS has some safeguards involved. If you try to install an application, a DMG file for Mac OS that has not been verified by Apple, unless you get a little trickery added to Mac OS, it's not going to install. Mac OS will say, no, not going to do it. Because Apple hasn't vetted that software. They don't know if there's malicious code in it or not. And they want you to be safe. Same thing with Linux. Same thing with Android. If you install applications from the Google Play Store, most often you're okay. But you might find an application that's not found, not anywhere on the Google Play Store, and you find the APK application, you download it to your Android phone and you install it. You enable side loading applications, you install it, and next thing you know, you've got ransomware. I generally like to say, especially to new users, follow this one simple rule. Only install applications that you absolutely have to have. And when you do install them from the standard repositories. Fire up that GUI, search for that application. If it's there, install it. If not, unless you can get it from a verified source, don't bother. For example, let's just say that Spotify was not available via Snap or Flatpak. But Spotify, on the Spotify site, they have a DEB or an RPM package that you can download and install. That's pretty safe because Spotify developed it. Spotify made it available for you. Now, if you go to, I don't know, mywebsite.com, and you see, oh, look, they've got Spotify. They've got the DEB package for Spotify. Woohoo, I can install it. You install it, blammo, you got malware. I'm not saying that's definitely going to happen, but it could. We've reached a point where you really do need to use a measure of caution, even on Linux. Even with package managers. Don't just randomly add repositories to your desktop or server and install applications from them. Do your due diligence. Say, oh, I found this repository that has this application that I want. Let's just say the repository is called, I don't know, Starliner. Making that up. So you go to Google or DuckDuckGo or whatever search engine you use and say, is Starliner repository safe? My mind went somewhere else there. I'm sorry. I don't want to tell you where my mind went, but don't know why. And if your search engine reports, I don't know if it's safe, I can't verify it, then I would not recommend you install any application from that Starliner repository. I know you thought, oh my gosh, I finally made the jump to Linux. I'll never have to worry about security again. If you're on a computer, you got to worry about security. Because let me just say this, and it pains me to say it, but hackers are always one step ahead because they have a vested interest in being one step ahead. And it's their job. It's their job to hack your system. So be careful. Don't just install applications willy-nilly. Use the standard repositories. Use universal package managers. Stay safe, because it's foolish of you to assume just because you're using Linux that everything is safe. Never has been, never will be. It's just safer. That doesn't mean you're 100% okay. Just use caution. Use the standard repositories, use your package managers, use universal package managers, and you'll be okay. Fortunately, it's all pretty easy. So, you know. So that's kind of my spiel on package managers. And I would end this by saying, don't be afraid of them. And just because Linux has the command line and the package managers on Linux use the command line doesn't mean you have to use it. Those GUIs are really good. Even that old school Synaptic package manager, which I have used for a long time, I don't really use it now because I'm using Pop! OS and it doesn't have Synaptic, but all of the, even Octopi's a little clunky, but it works. And when you can use a GUI and just type GIMP and then blammo, it shows up and you just click install, it doesn't get any easier than that. So don't fear Linux because you think you're going to have to use the command line to install applications, because you're not, unless you're on a headless server. Anyway, thank you again for sitting around and listening to me blather on about Linux, because I know it's a topic I love, and I'm assuming it's a topic you love. And we've got a lot of ground to cover still. So this Linux 101 series is going to go on for a very long time. Eventually it'll level up to a 201, where we'll get a little bit deeper into the muck and mire of Linux. But I have a feeling Linux 101 is going to carry me through another year or so. We'll see. Anyway, thank you again. I hope that your beginning of 2025 has been wonderful so far, and I hope that this year brings you much joy, love, and hope. And I honestly wish that you and everyone you know and love have a wonderful, wonderful day.